Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Bow to the weather here. And a report on Tropical Depression ETA. It's been 2 days of torrential rain and wind in Nicaragua and Honduras region, and after a few days over the mountainous terrain of Central America, ETA will certainly re-emerge in the Caribbean, but it is a skeleton of its former self, with no real markers of a center at this time. In order for us to track ETA, we have to look at the feeder bands and convergence of air into the system where we think it actually is. With tropical systems, they have lower pressure than the surroundings, so we actually look to air moving into them to try and identify and pinpoint where they actually are. There are convergent bands over Guatemala and Belize, and as ETA makes its way into the Caribbean, we'll be able to see more organizational activity on the satellite by observing this feeder band activity. Through Monday morning, heavy rainfall from ETA will possibly lead to flash flooding and river flooding across portions of Central America. Flash flooding and river flooding is also possible in Jamaica, southeast Mexico, the Cayman Islands, and Western Caribbean. ETA is forecast to become a tropical storm as it makes its way towards Cuba. The actual details of the track and intensity of ETA are uncertain at this time. If we look to possible heavy wind and rainfall, we're actually looking at the regions of Cayman Islands, Cuba, possibly southern Florida, and Florida Keys this weekend and early into next week. If you haven't already done so, please subscribe and like this video so we can spread the word to as many people who may be impacted by the path of this tropical depression, soon to become a tropical storm again, and get updated so that they can protect their life and property. By subscribing and liking this video, it means that it gets shared with more people who may be impacted, and perhaps we'll all be a little bit safer after all of this is done and tropical depression ETA enters the Caribbean and barrels towards Cuba with possible impact to South Florida early next week. The Miami, Florida Keys area needs to be observant of ETA and prepare for any kind of sudden shifts in its movement. Click the notification bell to get the latest updates on Tropical Depression ETA as it re-intensifies and unleashes torrential heavy rain and possibly catastrophic flooding in Cayman Islands and Cuba, and possibly South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale area. We do need to pay close attention to the system, especially after the calamity that was brought to Nicaragua and Honduras only a few days ago. So moving forward, ETA is moving pretty slowly, and the feeder bands are dropping significant rain on parts of Central America. And as it's reorganizing right now, we need to take a look at regions that may be affected in its path in the next 72 hours. We're looking at regions of Cayman Islands, southeast Mexico, Jamaica, and Cuba that need to prepare for significant rain and activity in the next day or so. We are a little bit too far to forecast rain and flooding for South Florida because of three possible scenarios as it reemerges over the landmass of Cuba. It may stay clear of Florida and go into the Gulf of Mexico as it's impacted by upper level trough. It may be impacted to the point where it may reemerge over after leaving Cuba and possibly have some parallel movement activity along the west coast of Florida, or it may go towards southern Florida directly. Its path is uncertain at this time. As mentioned, there is one competing system right now, which is at upper level trough, which will possibly stay clear of Florida and allow it to move west-northwest into the Gulf of Mexico. There's also CIRA, which is going to limit its cyclonic reorganizational activity, which will lessen the likelihood of it progressing into a low-level hurricane very, very quickly. It's hard to say how the storm will actually behave when it fully re-enters the warm waters of the Caribbean. It is safe to say that the Cayman Islands should prepare for significant and heavy rain very soon. The feeder bands of this system could extend all the way to the western side of Jamaica and impact the parishes of Westmoreland and St. Elizabeth in Jamaica, even while Jamaica is still trying to recover from the devastating effects of heavy rain and downpours from Zeta. Looking close at this system, we see a broad circulation around central Honduras tonight, and then for the next 24 hours, ETA will enter in the Caribbean, and with an upper level low over the northwest Gulf and a ridge over the Bahamas, these two competing weather systems, ETA will very likely steer northwest and impact Cayman Islands and South Cuba with possible feeder band activity over the southwest regions of Jamaica, most notably the parishes of St. Elizabeth, Clarendon, and Manchester may actually get a significant rain as a result of feeder band activity as ETA, tropical storm, possibly ETA, barrels its way towards Cuba. As it travels over Cuba, it will weaken and reemerge on the north side of Cuba, where it will meet the super warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico, which could lead to reorganization. As it's battering Cuba with heavy rain, its path will be uncertain. It's unclear whether it will actually regain hurricane strength or it will actually stagger a little bit. There is a potential for shear, and with these types of systems, higher winds and upper level low will actually prevent vertical stacking, which will actually prevent the increase of cyclonic activity of tropical storm ETA as it moves forward. As we can see from the hurricane and global models, which change from time to time, of course, ETA will approach Cuba, and there may be significant disorganization once it enters into the Gulf of Mexico. So as ETA travels towards the Bahamas, it may impact South Florida. It will stay clear. It may stay clear of South Florida, or it may be impacted to this extent where it will just simply go directly into the center of the Gulf of Mexico. Some of the models do seem to line up with it possibly staying clear of Florida. One thing for sure, as ETA meets the warm waters of the Gulf, where the sea surface temperature is warm, around 30 degrees Celsius, an element of shear will aid in this disorganization and will prevent it from becoming vertically stacked. Shear has a tendency to limit the cyclonic intensity, so we need to we don't really expect ETA to really organize rapidly after it emerges on the north side of Cuba. National Hurricane Center is pretty confident that tropical storm landfall in Cuba with tropical storm winds and rain impacting the Cayman Islands and western area of Cuba, with possibility of low-level hurricane approaching, developing into a low-level hurricane as it enters into the Gulf of Mexico. However, it's important to note that there's too much uncertainty to know what ETA will actually do, whether it will actually approach Florida, stay clear of Florida, or just simply be steered by a competing weather system. It could very well slow down and stagger over Cuba, in which case would be devastating news for the island nation of Cuba, simply because it would mean that it would actually unleash a lot of rain and thunder in a very short period of time, which could lead to flash flooding. The system we should anticipate from this system that feeder bands could be as larger than expected. So the Cayman Islands and western Jamaica could see heavy rains. We can be confident that high shear will limit ETA into developing into a strong hurricane after exiting the island mass area, for at least for a while as it enters the Gulf. At a minimum, expect widespread heavy rain in Cuba and the lower Florida Keys for at least the feeder band activity, perhaps as much as 8 inches of rain in the lower Keys, even as it makes a northwest turn into the Gulf, which all depends on the cyclonic activity, how it interacts with the competing weather systems, and the divergence with hurricane and global models showing it interacting with the Gulf of Mexico. Time will tell, actually, the impact of this warm surface sea temperatures of the Gulf of Mexico and the high shear. We should expect re-intensification as the storm steers northwest towards Cuba. Cayman Islands, of course, needs to prepare for tropical storm winds, and western Jamaica, especially the parishes of St. James, Westmoreland, and Hanover, should prepare for heavy rain from possible feeder band activity around midday to late afternoon Sunday. As far as Cuba and Florida are concerned, heavy rain is anticipated, with even greater expectations of heavier rain in the Florida Keys. If the system moves very slowly and kind of staggers its way towards Florida as it's met with higher shear and another competing weather system, it means disorganization, which actually should mean that it could stagger a little bit, or it could actually just simply steer north into the Gulf. So we'll be watching these convergent inflow bands to learn more about ETA as it enters the Caribbean, as it starts to reorganize itself. Please make sure to subscribe and like and share this video with friends and family in impacted areas. Click the notification bell for instant alerts on the update on Tropical Depression ETA and its re-intensification into a tropical storm and possibly a low-level hurricane. With these competing systems of low-level and a high shear, there's a lot of uncertainty. So definitely click the notification bell for updates, considering how close Cuba is to the Florida Keys and how close Cayman Islands is close to Jamaica. We do need to monitor this tropical system very carefully over the next 24 to 48 hours for potential heavy rain and flash flooding in those regions. Stay tuned for updates, and so make sure to subscribe. Thank you, and let's bow to weather and stay informed.